Hi, I'm Valerie A. Grant, founder and CEO of Grant Consulting Services, LLC. I've been a grant professional for 28 years, and this year we are celebrating our 25th anniversary of our company. And we're so excited to be joining you today for International Grant Professionals Day. We want to talk about grants. We have been experiencing an evolving grant landscape. There is increasing competition for funding. There's a lot of administration changes that have happened recently. And what I've learned is just wait 5 minutes and it'll change again. So what we want to talk about today is optimization and how that can help you through changes and shift your grant seeking approach from reactive to strategic. During our time together, I would love for you to think about what would it look like if the organization you work with, or if you're a consultant, the organizations that you work with were always ready for grant opportunities without having to scramble at the last minute. Let's go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, there's been some challenges in the grant landscape. We had the federal freeze and then the unfreeze. We've had some executive orders that have eliminated DEI funding and medical research funding as well, and there's surely more to follow. We have funding dollars that are more competitive. The national grant approval rate is now about 25%. 5, 7, 8 years ago, that number I could say comfortably was at about 33%. So it has declined quite a bit. And we're seeing that some cycles are as low as 2% approval. Organizations are getting thousands of grant applications, and it's so competitive that we want to make sure that we can help with the grant application effort. So optimization. It will help to align your grant seeking efforts with your organization's mission and priorities. It increases efficiency, and it really helps to reduce stress. And we can all use a little bit of stress reduction these days, and it can help enhance your funding success rate. Optimization helps to build internal systems that support grant seeking and really overall operations of the organization. You, as grant professionals, might already use the term grant readiness, and grant optimization expands on that readiness by integrating continuous improvement, sustainable systems, and mission alignment as well. Let's go to the next slide, please, to discuss the process. We start with a feasibility study. And this framework might look familiar to you if you've ever taken a journalism class or written for a newspaper or taken a speech class. You have to know where you're at in order to get to where you want to go. So we take a look at an organization in depth using this framework of who, where, what, why, when, how, and we added who cares because we want to understand the impact organizations make in their communities. Some of the key areas that we study in depth while looking at organizations, interviewing stakeholders are leadership and governance. That would include board members, staff, and partnerships as well. Some of the questions that we're asking are the board of directors diverse? Are they engaged in strategic planning? And are they giving financially to the organization? Some of the questions we might ask about the roles of staff members is, are there actually written job descriptions and are their goals aligned with the organizational goals? And then documentation is another example area that we look at deeply. Grant makers want documentation, right? They want that tax exempt letter. Is that easily available on or at hand? Other organizations may be required to register with one of their state governing agencies like the Attorney General or Secretary of State. So we want to make sure that is also included. And then is there a strategic plan? If not, why not? And if there is, does it make sense? Is it a good roadmap? Another example area we dive deep and get the nitty-gritty details on are the program design. Are the programs aligned with a clear mission and backed by SMART objectives? And then is there data to prove the need and the impact in the community? And the final example that I'll go over, financial management. We are looking at the numbers closely. We're checking to see, are there separate project budgets? Is there a pro forma organizational budget? Are there audited financial statements? And then do the numbers make sense when we look at them? Or is there some work that needs to be done in that area? And then over a week or two, a period of time, we look at all of this information and then we score it using a predetermined scoring rubric. And if we can go to the next slide, you'll see an example of a scoring rubric. And this link will also be put in the chat for you to access and use as you need. So you can see on the left side, there are categories. And for this example, we have the board of directors and documentation and smart objectives or program design. The next four columns have the criteria by which the organizations are scored. For example, if a board of directors, if they are very engaged strategically, everybody gives financially, and they are at every board meeting and they have board meeting minutes for every single meeting, they may achieve a score of 4. On the other end of the spectrum, if they are not as engaged, not everybody gives financially, one or two people are strategically involved, they may obtain a score of 1. The score is then put in the right-hand column. And then let's go to the next slide to see how we wrap everything up. We take a look at all of the areas, and the total score is then given based on each category. And if they achieve a score of 11, great. It looks like they are really well optimized and ready to go after grant applications. If they achieve a score of 6 to 8, there could be some work that needs to be done. There certainly is some work that needs to be done. So the scoring rubric and our decades of experience help us to identify gaps and make recommendations to help fill those gaps and help organizations along in their path to optimization. We compile all of our findings into a customized report. We call it a blueprint that scores readiness, and it highlights opportunities for growth too. The optimization blueprint, it provides a plan with goals and actionable items. It creates ownership among team members, and it provides a timeline for task completion. Let's go to the next slide to take a look at an example. Here is an optimization checklist. This is an example of some of the things that might be pointed out or that we might find in a feasibility study. I will also drop a link so you can have access to this spreadsheet and change it, use it however you need it. You can see the optimization might look familiar. We did tailor it after a milestone chart. We want to help organizations become more familiar with tools that are used in grant applications. And this is one way to do it, is to model the paperwork and the processes that we use after some of those tools. So if you take a look from left to right, you have the recommendations, and that's broken down by each of the categories. You have a due date, the person responsible, and then the outcomes. The outcomes are super important because we want organizations to be able to see the end at the beginning, and they'll know that they will have some positive results. As an example, the board of directors in this case, we asked them to be more involved and use their networks to try to build up the organization. The deadline is ongoing because that's an ongoing process. The responsible parties are the board of directors, and then the outcome will be building better partnerships in the community. And the blueprint and the blueprint and optimization checklist help us to drive organizational change that is needed. Grant optimization is about creating systems where readiness becomes second nature. Let's go to the next slide, please. It is super important to remember that full optimization requires leadership, staff, board members, and stakeholders in order to create lasting change. Optimization is a continuous and empowering process that enhances funding preparedness and impact in the community. By aligning your mission and with funders and implementing friendly systems, your organization can consistently create change in your community. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you about optimization. If we could go to the next slide, please. If you have any questions for me after this immediate Q&A period, please reach out via our website, any of the social media, or through email, and I'll be happy to talk with you further about optimization. Thank you and happy International Grant Professionals Day.